Oh, and that actually reminds me of something else I wanted to mention. I get so frustrated whenever people talk about like the national debt and whatever, because it's always like it's stuff that sounds like politics but isn't, right? Like whenever people talk about, oh, in inflation, gas prices especially, and then like uh the national debt and the national deficit and whatever, these are pretend politics. These are not actual subjects of debate. For one, gas prices are not something that the federal government has like a direct degree of influence over. They have indirect influence, such as the case with every consumer good. But then the discourse should not be focused on gas prices specifically. It should be on the stuff that drives like how high prices are, right? Um, and then with the national deficit and the national debt, people seem to be under this delusion that number one, there's any way to fix it. No, there isn't. And it's also not a problem because the US has an enormous amount of leverage as a result of the debt that we owe to other countries. To fix that, quote unquote, to pay back that debt would actually be to fundamentally deprive the US of all the economic leverage that we have. It's a terrible idea. But then number two, people act like the debt is something that should be paid back on a moral grounds because it's like, oh, we owe other people a lot of money. No, we don't. Who the fuck do you think the U.S. owes that money to? Like yeah, sure, there are foreign businesses and whatever, but that's just part of the debt economy. Everybody owes money to everybody. That's how the debt economy works. Every big giant company that like regular people are indebted to, that big giant company is indebted to 37 other big giant companies, and they're all indebted to a bunch of other big giant companies and also each other. That's how economies work when you have like fiat money. Joe Biden owes me $5. He owes you more than $5. That's what I was about to get to. The principal party that the government owes the national debt to is itself. It's the public. The U.S. government, yeah, it owes foreign companies, it owes foreign countries a lot of money in that debt. It also owes us, the American people, a lot of that money. And if you like talking about the national debt as it like, oh, oh, we have to cut spending, because that's one of the talking points I hear so frequently that's so frustrating. That actually makes the national debt worse, not better, because the national debt is caused by a lack of public infrastructure funding. Public infrastructure doesn't just need to be built, it needs to be maintained. And when you've built public infrastructure that you then cut funding from, that's public infrastructure that you still have to maintain. Otherwise, it falls into decay. And if it falls into the decay, that means you're going to be backlogged on maintaining it. So you still have to spend more and more money on it. That means you go into debt because you're not willing to pay up for the infrastructure that you built for the benefit of the public. Long story short, when people say, oh, the national debt is so big, we have to cut spending in order to fix it, that is a recipe for only ever making the national debt worse. The way we get out of the national debt is by spending a shit ton of money on stuff that will pay off in the future. I'm not joking. Spending money on education, on healthcare as public projects to make people's lives better results in people having more money, results in more tax revenue coming in, and it results in those discrepancies from the lack of infrastructure funding being cleared from the books. Yeah, and like it's counterintuitive. So I can't 100% fault people. Remove the IRS for some time and see what happens. Oh, buddy, you do not want the IRS gone. Trust me. You want the IRS to have $1 million billion fucking dollars is what you want. The reason the IRS has put out reports to some of this. And I've read some of these reports. The reason the IRS so frequently audits poor people is because that's all that they have the money to do. The government stops giving them money, and as a result, they can't audit rich people anymore. The IRS has been put in front of Congress, and they have said, believe me, we would love to go after some of these rich fucks because they're committing fraud in the light of day. But you know how many fucking lawyers they have? They have 1 billion lawyers, and we don't have enough money because the government doesn't give us enough money to do these investigations. If the IRS had money, you think they'd be going after Joe Schmo? Like, no, they got bigger fish to fry. The problem is they don't have enough money to fry them because the government's like, yeah, the IRS is bad. The fucking thing that gives us any money at all by collecting revenue is bad because, paradoxically, because it gives us that money. Republicans really don't want rich people to pay taxes. One of the biggest misconceptions about the IRS is that like, oh, they only tax poor people because they hate poor people. No, they tax poor, they go after poor people a ton. First of all, because the tax bracket is backwards as fuck, and second of all, because they don't have the money to pursue rich people, because the government stops giving them fucking money. Again, it's kind of conceptually and like abstractly frustrating, because I can't blame people for not understanding such a complex thing as like American budgetary economics or whatever, right? It's a complicated subject, but there are certain misconceptions that people keep like going back to that only ever put the US deeper and deeper in the hole, and that will eventually cause us to become the fucking dying country that Britain is now if we don't get our shit together and, number one, fund the IRS, and number two, spend a million fucking billion dollars on public infrastructure projects like education, rail, and healthcare. Oh, damn, he got me from the side? Wow. Imagine paying tax for a $2 drink. My European ass could never. Actually, you could, and you do. Sales tax is also a thing in Europe. The difference is they include it in the price. The sales tax is part of that $2. In the United States, it's $2, and then they show you, and then you have this much tax afterwards. Whereas in Europe, if a drink is $2, the $2 includes that tax. You are getting taxed for that drink. It's just way easier for you because, like, European tax systems aren't stupid. Or they're not as stupid as in America. Hey guys, editing Y2K here. Just wanted to note after this video, you might have noticed there are no screenshots from news sites this time, which is a little bit unusual given the way I usually do videos, and there also will not be any sources linked in the description. That's because the source for the information that I come up with in this video is mostly from a book, that book being Capital in the 21st Century, and a little bit also from Capital and Ideology. These are two economic tomes by Thomas Piketty, a French economist. And I feel like I should mention that now because rather than implying that you should go read the books to understand or to properly vet what I'm saying, I'm asking you to trust me that I have read those books and understand them. I'm not going to wish that upon you because that is it's about 1,500-ish pages. It's a lot. So that's where all this information is coming from. If it seems like I'm going on this giant rant about economics lore, that's where it comes from. Just so you know, I'm not pulling this all out of my ass. So it does technically have a source, but I didn't want to link something directly because with the news article, typically news articles are short enough that you could take a cursory glance and kind of see what I'm referring to. But with, you know, over 1,000 pages of economics, like academic literature, it's a little bit different. Anyways. Hope you enjoyed. Remember, the national debt will only be fixed by spending a shit ton of money on public infrastructure because the national debt is something America owes to itself. And that's my tech talk. Bye.